What is going on, guys? So we are back with the final deep dive that we're going to be doing for quite a while to kind of like fill you in on the more, I guess, final details of this idea that I'm having. I guess you could call this a podcast, but it's not really. I mean, I guess, yeah, it's going to be me sitting down and talking about Pokemon. Same way that I do deep dives. It's just that I'm going to cram so many Pokemon into one specific video that basically within the time the cup gets announced, I will still run the spreadsheet, all the stuff that I typically do. I do that, I share that with you guys, but I don't necessarily do it because you guys utilize it. I utilize it because I make these videos, and I'm still gonna need to utilize it to make these next few adventures as well, so I'm still gonna have to do that for myself. So all that will still be maintained. Nothing's gonna change there. When new moves get added, I still have to go in and do that, because if I don't, I kind of like mess up in these type of situations. So basically it's gonna be a long form, like maybe hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours. But what this allows me to do is sit down within the first 2 weeks of the cup being announced before the actual tournaments begin. It gives me 2 weeks to start planning and looking at a meta, usually defined by PvPoke, because that's what I typically do all of my simulations in anyways, and kind of break down that meta or even the top ranked Pokemon and just like go through them all and see how they interact with each other. Like, if you could imagine, like, I used to do the versus videos where we put two Pokemon head to head. I kind of look at it as like a gigantic battle royale, as much as I hate to use that term right here, kind of all mixed together. So I'm gonna take all the Pokemon, we're gonna go through like all the moves of different things, and we're gonna kind of see how things interact with things. And it's more of like a gigantic collaboration of all the deep dives. And I basically have 2 weeks to put it all together, get it all recorded, and then I'm gonna put up like a gimmicky little stupid little animation, so it at least gives you something to look at, but there won't be any kind of like graphics or anything like I typically do. The research alone takes quite a while to do deep dives, and then the graphics kind of like double that time, and then recording and editing is like another double of that. So the whole goal of this is to literally streamline everything to be as smooth and quick but efficient as possible. So hopefully by the time our next cup gets announced, which isn't supposed to be announced until I think the 18th, I don't have a calendar in front of me, and my computer I'm literally controlling with just a keyboard today, so I can't even look at it. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure it's on the 18th, which means from the 18th until the 1st of February, I'm basically gonna go like really hard on doing all this research and doing all these different things to get this recorded, and then basically put it all together. And hopefully by the 1st of every month, I will actually have a long form podcast, is what I guess we could call it, so that you guys can sit down and watch it all. Or I'm gonna have timestamps so that you guys can literally just skip to the Pokemon that you want, and you can kind of see how they interact with other Pokemon and things like that. I think if it goes the way that I can imagine it in my head, I think it'll be very interesting. But with that out of the way, that's the last little bit of details that I'm gonna give you before we actually get into it. Today we're going to be going over Haunter, who is a ghost and poison type Pokemon, maxing out at 1963 CP. With a 1 attack, 15 defense, 14 stamina though. At level 28.5, you do hit 1499. 164th in bulk and 132nd in stat product is just, oh my god, that's so pitiful. But of course it does come from our attack stat being insanely high. 223, 107, 128 on our stat spread is, I mean, okay, that really does make a lot of sense. We are super glassy, which is to be expected with any of the Ghastly line, right? Switching over to some moves here, we do have Shadow Claw, Lick, and Astonish in terms of fast moves. Shadow Claw literally just makes the most sense here. It's got the highest energy per turn, and it's tied for the highest damage per turn with Lick, and Lick is just inferior in energy, so Shadow Claw is just a clear numeric winner. There's no reason that you should like really even question it, so let's just go with Shadow Claw. In terms of charge moves though, this one is a little different. So Shadow Ball, 55 energy, 100 damage, 1.82, pretty standard, 120 on the damage, after stab for a 2.18, great. Dark Pulse is at 50 energy for 80 damage at a 1.6. no stab, which is fine. Sludge Bomb, 50 energy, 80 damage, 1.6. 96 after stab, which does boost it to a 1.92, which is quite efficient. Shadow Punch, 35 energy for 40 damage at a 1.14. After stab, it does get a 48, and then it does boost it up to 1.37. So, all in all, PB Pokey recommends Shadow Ball and Shadow Punch, and that's fine. I personally think that Sludge Bomb is very, very interesting. I did run with Shadow Ball and Shadow Punch on this video, but I definitely think that Sludge Bomb could be used in quite some unique situations. It would be a tad bit faster than Shadow Ball, but it's not going to be quite as punishing, so you might be lacking in a little bit of like that little inch of closing damage that you need just to kind of seal the deal sometimes. But it makes for a really interesting move that I don't think a lot of people are going to be like really expecting, and that's kind of what I like about it. So with our moveset being Shadow Claw, Shadow Punch, and Shadow Ball, holy cow, let's go through some shielding situations here with the 0 versus 0 in the entire cup situation. A 48.3 is respectable, I guess. Looking for 50% there. 2 versus 0 is an 88.1. Unfortunately, it's not even quite to the 90%. 0 versus 2 is a whopping 2.1%. 2v2 is a 39.2. So all around, it's just not even looking good. In terms of the meta though, 0 versus 0 is a 30%, which is lacking. 1 versus 0 is a 75%, is also pretty lacking. 0 versus 1 is 20%, and the 1 versus 1 is a 45.0. So impressively, that 0 versus 1 at a 20% is pretty insane, and the 1 versus 1 makes a pretty big comeback at 45% as well. I'm not very impressed in the 0 versus 0 or the 1 versus 0, but in the latter half, the 0 versus 1 and 1 versus 1 are really, really good. So let's actually tear down that 45% that we had in the 1v1 and kind of figure out what we do win and lose up against. So our clear wins here are Heracross, Venusaur, Alolan Ninetales with Powder Snow, Alolan Marowak, Charizard, Togekiss, Wigglytuff, and Alolan Ninetales with Charm. All those are okay, I guess. There's not really any like clear distinction besides Heracross. Kind of gonna have a hard time considering it's utilizing Counter in the beginning. Frostlass, I guess, is interesting a little bit. Alolan Marowak kind of falls into this category as well, where they're kind of ghost types too. They just don't really do a whole lot up against us here. Venusaur is a nice win. I do like the fact that we went up against that. Outside of that though, I mean, I guess Wigglytuff and Alolan Ninetales are good that we win because they both use Charm. Otherwise though, our losses is what we're really concerned about here. Altaria, Quagsire, Alolan Muk, Poliwrath, Swampert, Alolan Sandslash, Noctowl, Whiscash, Shiftry, Probopass, and Bronzong. Bronzong is the weird one. I really thought we would do good up against Bronzong, and I kind of feel like if you can catch the Bronzong off guard, you still would do pretty good up against it, but unfortunately, simulation-wise, it still kind of trumps us here. So, pretty big deal to lose to Altaria. He's kind of like the big one here. Everything else kind of makes some sense once you break it down, which let's actually do that so we can kind of get a clearer picture here. So in terms of the ripe and rotten stuff, worst things to really go up against here, we do have a big problem with the ground types. Quagsire, Swampert, and Whiscash all do give us some pretty big problems, and I think one of the easiest ways to get rid of those is the grass types. Venusaur and Shiftry work really well here. Even though they did axe Victory Bell from the meta, I still think he'd be pretty good here as well. But either way, another category that we have a big problem with are the steel types. So Alolan Sandslash, Probopass, and Bronzong all do give us a big problem here. The best thing to really go up against those is, I guess, Alolan Marowak or Charizard. But it kind of, to me, feels like you really need to choose. Alolan Marowak doesn't really do good up against Probopass, and Charizard is kind of not good up against Probopass, period. So Probopass is kind of the wild card there, but just kind of depends on like how you really approach it. Depending on like if you're expecting a ton of Probopass, you might want to go with one of the ground boys for that, but either way, that's beside the point. Last category is the dark, which would be Alolan Muk and Shiftry. Now, I think based on what I found, Poliwrath and Heracross, of course, are going to do okay up against both of these, but I think Poliwrath may be better for the Alolan Muk, and Heracross may be better for the Shiftry. If you were to switch them around, it doesn't really do a lot of good here. So if you're going up against Shiftry, Poliwrath may have a big problem. Maybe not in the fast move area, but definitely in some of the charge moves that Shiftry will use. And Alola Muck actually may have a little bit of issue with Heracross, but they're kind of iffy. So even though like fighting does typically beat Dark, these two Darks are really interesting, which is why they're in the meta for the first place. But they kind of like didn't really fit into another category. So like maybe like Fire would be good up against Shiftry and the Ground Boys would be good up against Muck, but it didn't really work. I definitely think that Haunter got axed from the meta, and I guess if you wanted to boil it down to his numbers, I can understand why he was axed. He's kind of lacking in some areas. He has had some really good runs in the past, like with different cups and stuff, but unfortunately in this month he's just not living up to a lot of his former glory. Kind of feels like another Poliwrath to me, as much as some of you guys may hate to hear that, but otherwise, that's pretty much it for Haunter, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. Thanks so much for watching. This is the last deep dive, and it's kind of interesting because I've literally been doing deep dives for almost a year now. I really started doing deep dives at the beginning of the year because PvP had just come out, and I think the first Boulder Cup started on January 6th, if I'm not mistaken, right? So yeah, I've been doing deep dives for quite a while, and a lot of you guys, whether you're still here, whether you never see this because you never watch these videos ever, thank you for hanging out, because it was a wild ride for me. I really liked it, and I got to meet a lot of good people at the tournaments that I was going to. A lot of people even like recognized me at some of the tournaments that I went to, which was very, very cool, and I don't think I would have got that experience with many other games. So I'm very excited and very humbled to have had that experience, and I really hope that me deciding to change this format because of reasons that I'm doing it works out for the better, because I mean, I don't want to take a step back, but I feel like I need to evolve from this point. But either way, thank you. I really do appreciate it. To every single person out there that has watched the deep dive, that has been just a part of this channel while I've been doing these deep dives, I really do appreciate you guys. So until our next adventure in Pokemon Go, which I guess I can go ahead and tell you, I'm planning on calling it the Meta Mash. So until our first Meta Mash in February, I will catch you guys then. Thank you guys so much for watching. Always remember that if you like to like videos, you could do that, but if you don't, you could be that guy. Otherwise, let me know what you have to say down in the comments below about the video. I do highly appreciate you guys watching. If you guys want to support me in any way, there are several links down in the description for Patreon, joining the community here on YouTube, or even just directly PayPal if that's your thing. I greatly appreciate everyone's name that's on screen, as you guys have showed some sort of support outside of just viewing the videos, and I thank you guys. You don't understand from the bottom of my heart. So until our next video, guys, I will catch you then.